Welcome to the Time Management Podcast with me, your host, Abigail Barnes. I'm a productivity coach, global speaker, time management author, and award-winning entrepreneur on a mission to share the 888 formula with the world and to remind you that it's your time. Leave it to me to bring you new time management tips, tricks, tools, and strategies, to introduce you to guests, research, and case studies from around the world, and to give you a simple 5-step process you can follow to uplevel your productivity, achieve your goals, and create a life that exceeds your wildest dreams. I'm so excited that you're here, so let's get started. Welcome to the show. Today, I am so excited to be joined by the amazing Jessica Gardiner. Jessica, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Who is Jessica Gardiner in a nutshell?
I don't know if I could do it in a nutshell. Well, hello, everybody. Abby, thank you for having me. I'm Jess. I am the founder and managing director of one of the biggest global professional membership platforms for personal and executive assistants in the world. We basically exist to make PAs and EAs' lives happier, less stressful, help them claim back their time so that they can refocus their energy on the things that are really important to get their job right and support their execs and their teams correctly. And then I suppose in my personal life, I am a super budding cook. I absolutely love cooking. It's the way that I kind of relax and detox from the day. I think I get that from my mum. She always cooked fresh every single night for us. I don't think I ever ate anything as a child from a packet, which was lovely. And then I just have a lovely relaxed life out of work, living in Southwest London, walking Pepper the dog, who is on a naughty streak at the minute, but I still love her to absolute bits. And I pretty much spend the majority of my weekends wandering around art galleries and going to museums. I live a very busy professional life and then like to chill out as much as possible in my personal life.
What was your relationship like with time over the years?
Hit and miss, up and down. I think that speaking from personal experience, my relationship with time has changed dramatically over the last, I would say, 5 years. So the biggest lesson that I have taken is that actually my time is my time and I get to decide where I put my time, where I put my energy, who I put it with, and what I concentrate that on. And I now allow nobody to disrupt that unless it's something that will help with the bigger picture. So I now prioritize what I want. I now look at what my goals are and I think, well, how can I strategically allocate my time to get to that point? But before, I used to be very, I suppose, frivolous with my time. I used to give my time away without really thinking about it and allow people to treat my time as if it was their time. I've become a lot stricter with how I allocate my time, how I treat and respect the time that I have. And I've just seen a huge change with what I've been able to achieve, the goals that I've got, and how I'm able to work towards them. And my overall happiness and my stress levels are a lot less now that I prioritize what I know is important to me. And I've stopped saying yes to everybody else, especially if I know that that's not going to work for me anymore.
What was the wake-up call or wake-up calls that got you to this place? And perhaps talk us through your early career, because you didn't start life as a business owner. Love to hear a little bit more about the journey that's got you to Jessica 2.0.
I grew up in a household with a CEO, Dad. That was a baptism of fire pretty much every single day growing up. But I really saw how to run a business and how not to run a business, living with somebody and seeing the impact on the topic of time, where he spends his time, where he allocates his personal resources, how that affects our family, how that kind of impacts our family dynamic as well. I learned a lot. So I think that even though I didn't start my professional career as a business owner, I think I've always been destined to kind of sit in this seat ultimately. But I started in the corporate world as a personal assistant and I worked my way up from a very junior admin role all the way through to supporting founders, entrepreneurs, ultra high net worth individuals. And I absolutely loved it. And I think one of the biggest qualities that you need to have as a very strong business support professional, especially when you're working so close to leadership, is time management, is relationship management, is being able to perceive other people's reactions to certain things things so that you can prioritize business needs and business critical initiatives and allow your exec to also claim back their time and focus their time on things. When we are talking about my entire career, kind of coming back to what the question was before, how I said that I've not really taken my time seriously until about 5 years ago. That was when I stepped into a leadership position. So I've been running the assistant room now for about 7.5 years, but for two and a half years of that, I was still doing consultancy work. I was working with C-suite directors, founders and entrepreneurs to build the commercial structure of their organization. And I fully stepped away from being an EA back in 2016, took the assistant room full time just before COVID hit. And I haven't really looked back, but it's been a journey. It's been a whirlwind. It's not been easy. There have been lots of ups and downs. There have been challenges pretty much every single week, but I don't see them as negative opportunities or negative situations that I'm coming up against. They're opportunities there to learn, opportunities to develop, to grow, and to move forward, having greater clarity on, okay, well, if this happens again, this is what I would do differently, or this is how I would know that I would approach a situation. It's exciting. I love what I do, and I love having opportunities to meet and network with other people. You and I have known each other for quite a long time, and obviously we've seen each other go through these amazing transitions and these journeys that we've both been on. And it's lovely to finally have the opportunity, stepping out of an EA role, to be able to finally say, well, this is what I want with my career, this is what I want with my life, and to be able to really focus on that.
What are 3 time management tips that you would give to a new entrepreneur looking back on the journey that you've been on? What are 3 things that you feel are really, really important from a managing your time point of view?
Schedule your time, but schedule your time in a sense that you have your business time and your personal time. The one thing that I do now every single morning, and I have it scheduled in my diary, is I have 10 minutes at the beginning of the day, I have 10 minutes at lunchtime, and I have 10 minutes at the end of the day just to go for a walk or have some fresh air or just to completely detach from work. Because especially if I look back at how things were when I was first starting, and I think a lot of people will feel the same as this. When you're at the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey, you will do anything and you will sacrifice all the time that you've got to the business, because the message that I was given is that when you start your own company, you have to become obsessed with the idea that it is going to work. Unless you become obsessed with it, then you're not doing enough. And I actually think that that is a very damaging mindset to have. You still need to be able to have personal versus business time to be able to maximize both areas of your life. So I would say schedule that 10 minutes, whether it's 1 10-minute thing a day or whether it's 3 10-minute things a day, whatever it is, just make sure that you've got that diarized and stick to it. The next thing I would say is eliminate this feeling of guilt from your mind that you are not important and that the business is more important than you, your mental health and your personal well-being, because without you, the business doesn't exist. And you really need to prioritize that self-care in order to be able to make anything work as successful as you want it to be. I would say schedule your time, try and not feel guilty about putting yourself first. And then a third tip I would say is really utilize the resources that you've got out there that can save you time. Don't think that you can do everything. You don't necessarily need to have a massive team to be able to operate a startup in a really effective way, but we have AI now that can help you save a lot of time. Networking, for example, if I look back at my career now, I think that the one bit of advice I would give myself is be more strategic where I'm spending my time to get the right clients and customers in, rather than spending hours and hours and hours following all of the tips that you see on Google, network on LinkedIn here and, join all of these different forums, etc. Just choose 1 or 2 places, such as a coffee shop that where your ideal clients go to every morning, and just go and spend a morning working there. Don't try and spread yourself too thin. Be strategic and impactful and intentional with where you go to get you to your or get you on the way to your end goal. You can spend so much time in places that are not going to suit you and that are not going to give you the customer that you want. And it's draining and it's hard. And when you hear so many no's, it can be really difficult to stay motivated. Be a bit more intentional with where you're going to spend your time and where you're going to show up, because it makes a massive amount of difference.
These are 3 incredible top tips. And I think it's always so useful to ask somebody who who has been there what they would do differently, because it's only with the experience that we can do something different. The benefit of hindsight is what I'm hearing in this answer. So thank you so much for sharing that. Let's move on to your business and the clients that you support, that you work with, and how their relationship is with time. And I want to start with a question that may sound a little bit rude. The first time I was asked it, I felt it was asked in a rude way, but this is not the intention with this question. What is it that an assistant actually does?
It's not a rude question. It's a question that I think the majority of people will ask. And the answer is a never-ending list. I could not tell you from a kind of responsibilities element what they do, because everybody's different. However, the purpose of an executive assistant is to be a critical member of their team, whatever team that might be in. And it's really to enhance the efficiency and the effectiveness of the people working within that team. Everybody's working towards the same business goals. Everybody is on the same kind of journey when it comes to strategy, and this is what the business needs to earn, and this is what we need to do, and this is the type of clients we want to work with. Whatever the mission of that business is, everybody shares it. And then the role of the EA or the PA is to enable that person or that team to get a little bit closer to that goal. And everybody's different. Everybody has a different way of doing things. Every organization is different, but ultimately a PA is there to make organizations more effective and more efficient in what they do.
What are your top tips for managing the overwhelm that is inevitably going to come with the juggling of that kind of job? I've heard people say that as an assistant, they may support one person, they may support two, they may support 10. What are your tips?
Overwhelm is a really big issue, I think, for a lot of assistants. I believe that burnout hits EAs and PAs in a way that is very unseen because everybody is so behind the scenes, but it is very serious, especially due to how important they are for organizations to be effective and to be efficient in what they do. It comes down to two things: communication and boundaries. PAs and EAs, in the same way that I said, I can now control my time, everybody else can do the same. You have complete ownership of your time in your life, and that will only be taken away or disrupted or that boundary broken if you allow it to be. It's 100% inevitable. Being an EA or a PA or a business support professional is completely overwhelming, and burnout happens regularly. However, it is about communicating. How do you best like something being done? How do you respond under stress? How are the changes going to happen? I need to keep up with understanding what's happening in the organization so that I don't have to keep asking the same question. Or if you're going to ask me to do something, I need a clear understanding of how to do that so that I'm doing it correctly the first time. Without that kind of communication, it's impossible to get your job done, and the context of why you're doing things as well. And then boundaries is another thing. It is very, very usual for PAs and EAs, even if you're on a £20,000 salary, to be expected to answer the phone or be on your email all the time. But if you set a precedent when you're first working with a boss or with an organization that says, I have my working hours, I understand if there is an emergency, I can be contacted out of hours. But otherwise, I need you to respect the fact that I have a personal life. And PAs and EAs have the same friends, social life, hobbies, interests as everybody else does. But they are seen to be the people who can be called upon at any time of the day. And that obviously eventually leads to burnout. It leads to overwhelm. If you haven't got that personal space, it's very difficult to be able to show up every single day and be the best you possibly can. So it's about clear communication, clear boundaries. This is what I'm employed to do, and I will go above and beyond to the extent that I want to go above and beyond, but you need to respect that there is a limit. And I think it's as clear as that, really. I think it's a conversation that the conversation about boundaries and the conversation about respect of those boundaries for PAs and EAs is not a normal conversation. However, for most people within a business, it is a normal conversation. So for us as an industry to be able to get to a point where we are respected and we are given the space that we need to enjoy being human beings, we need to be brave enough, or PAs and EAs need to be brave enough to stand up and say, this is who I am at work, but I'm also an individual as well, and in the same way that you are. And we can be together as a team and we can work well together as a team, but we need to have that mutual understanding that this is what will work for us collectively.
I'm imagining that one of their roles or responsibilities is to handle problems that come up in the moment. And as we're all humans, and when problems come up in the moment, emotions come up. However, if you're the person who is handling that problem, how did you handle your emotions in the heat of the moment when you were in that role? And what advice would you give to anybody in that role for how to stay calm?
I think fight or flight and your natural response changes as you get older. And as you become more mature, it's probably because you stop caring about other people's opinions as much as you used to, and you stop feeling the pressure, and you understand as you get older that not everything's perfect and not everything's your fault. Even though somebody might think it's your fault, that doesn't necessarily mean it is. So when I was a PA, I think I used to be somebody who would very much, when confrontation happened, or if someone asked me to do something and there was that kind of difficult conversation or that pressure associated, I would pretty much shut down. And I wouldn't really do anything that kind of said, well, hang on a second, let's revisit that conversation, or, kind of stick up for myself in the way that I probably needed. And I think that's a big confidence thing. And I think that, as I said, it comes with age. But now, if there is an issue, if there is a problem, if there is somebody who is not necessarily the easiest person to deal with, as I said, regardless of whether what they're saying is true or not, I've learned that the best way to deal with any kind of heightened emotional response is just to remain completely calm. Just remove yourself from the situation, understand that everybody has things going on in their personal life that you probably have no idea what they're dealing with. And that most of the time, people's reactions towards you or the next person or the person who sits behind you, because the likelihood is that reaction would have been the same. It doesn't matter who you are. Somebody just needs to get something off their chest. But I think it's realizing that, again, you can control your response, and how they're acting and how they are dealing with a certain situation is not a reflection on you. It's a reflection on them. So the way that I deal with things now is, if there is a difficult situation, it's just to remain completely calm, take the emotion out of it, really be kind of objective with your response, and stick to the facts. If you are somebody in a very difficult role as an EA or a PA, and you have a very confrontational boss, or a boss that is just very, heightened in their emotions continuously, you know what you're dealing with, which is obviously a great thing. But just remember to remove the emotion from it. And then if you need to address it afterwards, or if you need to address something, speak to them about it. Don't let bad behavior go unnoticed, or don't let it slide. Have that conversation, but do it in an environment where there's a bit more control. You're never going to get something positive out of somebody who is in a bad place themselves. So I think take control back and schedule some time aside just to say, look, we need to just talk about what happened earlier, or we need to kind of go over this again so that this doesn't happen again. Help me understand, switch into that servant leadership mindset. Help me understand how we can do better next time as a team. And I find that works so much better.
What I'm really hearing in this answer is that it's not something that we're born knowing, that it is a learned behaviour, that it's not something that we're necessarily taught at school, that it's part of growing and evolving through our career. The $1 million question is, how can we learn these lessons faster? How important do you think it is for an assistant to have a network or a community that can support them, that can help them overcome these sorts of hurdles in their career, learn these lessons and do their job better?
It's absolutely imperative. I would not advise anybody be a PA or an EA unless you are actively interested in being part of a network outside of your role, because it can be very lonely. It can be very isolating. You are expected to work at the same speed, with the same dedication and the same passion for your role as your exec is for theirs. And obviously everybody takes pride in what they do. But I look back at my time supporting founders, I would be on a quarter of the salary that they were on, not including dividends or their bonus. And I would be expected to show up and pretty much be a mirrored version of them. every single day. And it's hard work. It's really, really hard. And if you are the only person within an organization, or if you don't work for or if you work for an organization that you don't necessarily trust 100% to take your problems to, or your challenges to, or your queries to, because you don't know where that conversation is going to end up or be overheard, having that type of network externally is so important. So we have our members forum in the assistant room membership. That is a constant back and forth. Hey, does anybody have any recommendations on this? I'm struggling with this at work. This has just happened and I just need a bit of confidential advice. Has anybody got 5 minutes to chat to me? What we've seen, because we've just done our most recent survey for PAs and EAs who are part of the membership, but also speaking to the corporates who we work with, who sponsor all of their assistants internally to have access to this, is that we've found over the last 2 years, there's been a 43% increase in retention rates for the PA/EA communities within their organisations, because they now feel as though they have a place to be able to go to, voice their challenges, and to get advice from people that they really genuinely trust and understand that they're talking about or giving advice from their own real life experiences, which is really important. So that emotional support and that support to overcoming challenges and finding new ways to do things is so important. Even though we've been doing this now for 7.5 years, the impact that we've seen from the forum, which we introduced a year and a half ago, has been absolutely sensational. So it is so important. I just don't think you can work in a people-led role without something like the assistant room.
Let's put ourselves for a second into the shoes of somebody who is right at this moment listening to this podcast thinking, I feel alone. There isn't anybody that I can talk to about this. I need to maintain a level for the executive that I'm supporting. I need to maintain a boundary for the colleagues that I'm working with. I just don't fit in, but I don't know if I want to go and try out this community. Like, what if it doesn't work? And what if I don't fit in there? And I also don't have time, which is then inevitably one of the excuses that we use when we're feeling afraid. What would you say to coach somebody through that process? Because we've all been there. It is scary, quote unquote, sometimes to go and do something new with new people. But as one of my mentors said, come in, the water's warm. What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's about being brave. I think that trying something new is always potentially quite scary, but it's about understanding, well, how can this benefit me? And how can this help me grow as an individual? And, you know, we have people regularly who attend our networking events and our training events. They come completely by themselves, and everyone's always so welcoming to them. And everyone is always, we have this kind of joke at the assistant room that if you turn up by yourself, you'll leave with 5 best friends at the end of the night. I think it's about understanding what works for you. There are a lot of different places as a professional that you can go to for support. And that's really important to know. You know, just because there's one thing that doesn't suit you doesn't necessarily mean that there's nothing that suits you. There is so much out there to help you. Everybody learns in different ways. Everybody absorbs information in different ways. What we try and do is we try and kind of tick as many boxes as possible. If you like reading things, we have the magazine. If you like listening to things or watching things, we have the podcast. If you like a little bit more extra support, you have the membership where we have the members forum, we have the members meetups, we have the concierge desk that can help you save so much time so that you can reallocate certain resources that you have access to, or the responsibilities that you have within your role. You can reallocate your time to focus on those things a little bit more. I think it's about just being brave and taking a leap. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You know, when I left my last ever EA role, I quit on the spot. I had no savings, I had no job to go to, but I just had this sudden epiphany that I am what is important. And what's the worst that's going to happen? I'm going to give something a go, which wasn't the assistant room. It was just taking a little bit of time out, and then just see where it goes. I think being too self-conscious over how other people will view you is one of the biggest barrier to entries that we see within some of the members who I speak to say, well, we're not really too sure if it works. Time-wise as well, we've eliminated every barrier to entry. Our members forum is on WhatsApp. We have a members weekly email that goes to everybody that educates everyone. This is what's coming up this week. we say we have a very open door policy, and that this membership and what we provide everybody, you're not supposed to feel like you have to work hard to get the most out of it. We bring it to you. So it's just about understanding, be curious. What is the worst that's going to happen? Nothing. So,
and I guess if you join or if you attend an event and you don't like it, you can always leave. You're not a tree.
exactly, you can leave, and you're not going to be judged. I mean this in the nicest way possible. No one's going to care if you decide, oh, this just isn't for me, I'm going to leave. There's no expectation for you to be a certain person beyond what you think of yourself. And I think that's something that I've learned as well. I remember walking outside recently, and I was in like my tracksuit bottoms and my hair was in a messy bun, and I thought, oh my God, what are people going to think of me when I'm walking the dog down the road looking like a complete mess? And then I suddenly realized no one's going to care what I look like. No one's looking at me. I don't like it. That's not important. But even if they did think about something about me, it's not important. It's not going to make any difference to what I do with my life or how I see myself. So embrace the messy bun, embrace the jogging bottoms, and just be happy.
I feel like we're in a wonderful part of life at the moment where this is the narrative. Just do you. You told us earlier that you were raised within an entrepreneurial family. So my question would be, what made you decide to start your business? But from listening to your story so far, it really sounds like it was already alchemizing in you. Let's talk about the assistant room. How can it actually save the assistants time, and how can it help them to do their job better?
So let's focus on the membership, which was something that was launched just before COVID. So we'd already been going for a few years, but I sort of took a step back and I thought, how can we take this up a notch? Exactly what you've just said, Abby. How can we help assistants save time, claim back their time, and enable them to do their job better in a way that resonates with businesses, so that people understand the value that these individuals bring to an organization, because it is the only role within an organization that isn't project based. So you don't have the same tangible, quantifiable evidence of someone's impact. Unless you are doing this job, it's very difficult to be able to understand what goes into it. So that's what we aim to do. It's about empowerment. It's about giving people for the first time the ability to say, this is who I am, this is the impact that I give, and this is how I'm doing it. And the really funny thing is that most of the time PAs and EAs are already doing all of these things. It's just that they haven't had the opportunity to explain it in a way that they feel confident in explaining it and therefore makes sense to other people. So from a time perspective, the biggest thing that we do to help PAs and EAs save time is our concierge desk. 100%. We, as I said earlier, open door policy. We are here to support people in whatever they need. So we will have requests through the concierge desk for a boss who wants to send something to someone in India. I need to find the best florist in India. I have no idea where to start. Or I've got a 600-person Christmas party to plan, and I've been given 2 months to plan it. We are able to pull on a huge black book, and nearly, from the team's perspective, over 20 years worth of networking with different organizations, different venues, different hospitality PRs, different service-based businesses, to be able to reduce the time that someone spends on finding an answer to, an event brief or a florist or finding a new travel provider. We can take that down from about a 5 or 6 hour task to eliminating it completely from their to-do list, actually. And it only takes us about half an hour to find all of the information that we need to present to them, because we have the relationships. We've done the hard work to be able to get the people that make the decisions on the phone. It saves a huge amount of time, and it also gives them the sort of security that we're referring them or recommending something that we've tried ourselves. So that also saves them time. They don't have to do a site visit if they don't want to. They don't have to spend loads of time researching loads and loads of different places to get the best option. We will give them the best option. So that is definitely the easiest way that we save time, and it is by far one of the biggest draws that a lot of PAs and EAs and businesses as well find when they're talking about the membership. We also save a significant amount of money for a lot of PAs and EAs on their event briefs, anything from kind of £1,500 removal of a minimum spend on a private dining room. But we recently saved £60,000 on a hotel hire for a client in the UK going over to the Algarve. So it's a double benefit, saving time, but also saving a lot of money, which businesses can then reallocate to other things to actually make the company and the business more efficient and effective. So it's a huge benefit. And then the way that we help them do their job better is we've got obviously the peer-to-peer support, which is absolutely crucial to helping a PA or an EA be successful in their role. Rather than spending half an hour Googling, how can I do this or how can I do that? You can go on the forum and within 5 minutes, you've got 3 or 4 people answering the question, as I said, from a real life lived experience as a PA or an EA, to say, this is what I would do, or this is what I wouldn't do. And it's so, so important. But then also it's about coming to us and saying, hey, I'm really curious about this skill, or I'd love to learn about this. And, we have the ability, we have the resources to pull together a really enriching experience that gives PAs and EAs everything that they need to succeed in their career completely. It's an amazing, I feel extremely lucky every single day to see the impact that we make, because it's global now as well. So it's really exciting. Every day there's something new, but the impact is constant, like every single day. And it's only getting bigger, which is amazing.
It's very, very rare in life that I have a conversation and I hear somebody describing something that I feel is quote unquote a no-brainer. From my point of view, if I was an assistant, I would want this membership as my magic wand. From an organizational point of view, I would want my assistants to have this membership as their magic wand. In this day and age, the to-do lists never get any shorter. Time management 101 is outsource what you can, delegate what you can, remove what you can, so that you can spend 80% of your time focused on those 20% of activities which are really adding that value to the bottom line. Wow, I'm mind blown. We're wrapping up the conversation. Talk to us about your perspective of time these days and how it shapes how you run your business and your life. Specifically, do you have different colors in your calendar for the activities that relate to you? Do you use the same calendar? Give us some little tips, tricks. How does Jessica Gardiner manage her time running the business and living her life? We've heard how you use your time, but what are the secrets to be able to do that?
Well, I'm still working on this. It's a constant journey. I'm never going to be an expert at managing my own time. Absolutely not. And that is coming from an ex-EA who used to manage multiple diaries of family diaries, business diaries across multiple time zones. It's always been something that I've done. And if I really kind of look at the way that I do give some of my time away, in terms of what people want from me. I allow people to book things into my diary through a Calendly link. If they want to understand more about a group membership, for example, there are certain ways that you can access me without needing permission, quote unquote. So I do have to be very, very specific with how I manage things. We have the WhatsApp group, the members forum. Members contact me directly themselves. I have 3 inboxes depending on which area of the business I'm focusing on at the time, whether it's our commercial contracts, whether it's our member inquiries that I like to be able to keep an eye on. I don't necessarily manage them now anymore, but it's nice to be able to have overview of them. And then obviously my personal inbox as well. There's a lot going on all the time. So I think the first thing that I do is 100% color code. 100%. I could not do it unless I can very easily identify, okay, I've got 3 member meetings today that I'm doing, or I've got a partnership meeting that I'm doing, or this is a little bit of do not disturb time for me. This is travel. Travel is the big one. If I didn't have travel color coded, I would just automatically double book myself because I wouldn't even think about it. It has to be scheduled. It has to be there. I have to be able to see it. If my time looks free, I will be, generous with it in the way that I think is necessary. I think the biggest lesson that I've taken away over the last, I'd say, 2 years is to be very apologetic to myself when it comes to what I can do and what I can't do with my time. So I can introduce all the different coping mechanisms that I possibly can to make sure that I am streamlined as much as possible and have very clear communication with the team. I don't work before this time. I'm happy to work at the weekend as long as I can have a bit of time, a bit of like a half an hour extra for my lunch break to go a bit for a walk on Monday, whatever it is. But I'm also very aware of the fact that I can't get everything done. I physically can't. No, I don't think it's possible. As you said earlier about the to-do list, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think biggest time-saving tip that I've taken is that the more I criticize myself for not being able to get every single thing done, the more time I actually waste focusing on the negative and not being able to put my time into the things that really matter. If I miss a deadline, I miss a deadline. As long as I communicate to the client or to our member, hey, look, we haven't been able to get to that point, or we haven't been able to sort this out for you today, but we will readdress it tomorrow, or we will get back to you tomorrow. That's what's important. But I used to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and work all the way through to midnight. And that's not going to do anything apart from impact my mental health, make me, not excited to go to work the next day, and change my perspective on why am I doing this. I think when you run your own company, you do have the luxury of being able to choose what you do a little bit more. But I don't think that many people really use that luxury. They think they have to work harder. And yes, of course you have to work harder to make things successful, but not to the detriment of your own personal life or your own mental health. So it's been a weird journey. I used to really be hard on myself, really hard, but it's not like that. My time is my time. I can choose what I do with my time. And if I want to spend more time on the business one day, I can, but it's important that I take time back for myself as well.
And what's one thing that you do with your time that you don't think that other people do?
That is a difficult question. If I look at the leaders that I used to support, I think it is allowing yourself the space just to be a normal person. You're not always that C-suite director. You're not always that leader. You're also a person. And I think giving yourself the room and the space to be that person is important. I used to support directors who would start work at 6 o'clock in the morning and sometimes would finish at 1 o'clock in the morning, and they wouldn't even have a lunch break. So I think being flexible is something that I'm much better at. I'm pretty sure that a lot of people are also very flexible, but I think there are lots of people who aren't, and they don't prioritize themselves, and they feel guilty about prioritizing themselves. We had a session yesterday on the topic of growth mindset for PAs and EAs. Growth mindset is not something that a lot of PAs and EAs understand, and it's not something that a lot of PAs and EAs embrace. And one of the questions that we had from one of our members to our facilitator was, how can I make sure that I'm taking time for myself as well as doing something else at work? Can I do my commute and switch off at the same time? Can I switch off and not do my emails at lunch? It was all about kind of trying to fit you in at the same time as your job. And the overall feeling was that there was a lot of guilt associated to taking back your own time. And I think that's what I'm very good at now. I don't feel guilty. I do not feel guilty about saying no anymore.
I love that. Give us your answer to that question then. What would you advise somebody who wondered if they could switch off during their commute or not think about work while they were eating their lunch? What would you say if that was somebody's challenge?
It's all about technology. The way that we live now as human beings is in a world where your response is normally expected immediately. You have friends who will text you and they want an immediate response. You have a boss who will ask you to do something. They want an immediate response. You have a client, they want an immediate response. It is go, go, go. There is no break anymore for anybody. It's about creating really positive habits, but also holding yourself accountable to maintaining those habits. Everybody can have a slip up, but if you're compromising on those habits every single day, there's no point setting them in the first place, in my opinion, because there's no such thing as action without intention.
Top tip there. It really sounds like I'm hearing you say boundaries and you ultimately control this. What is the number one thing that you want to tell assistants that you think that they don't already know?
You are incredible at what you do. The role that you have is extremely important within organisations to a point where I don't think is truly understood, even by PAs and EAs. The impact and the contribution that business support professionals make goes so unbelievably deep within businesses. It's a role that is unseen, but the impact is also unseen. And we can create a new version of who we are by simply repositioning who we are and explaining what we do in a more accurate way. If you explain yourself as somebody who manages someone's diary, is that really what you do? Actually, diary management is about negotiating people's time. It's about maintaining relationships, building relationships, representing your boss or your team based on what you know the business priorities are at the time. If we start to really represent ourselves in the way that we know is accurate to what we do on a daily basis, there will be a huge shift in this industry. But even if we aren't able to see a shift as quickly as we want to, just repositioning yourself in your own mind is going to give you so much more confidence and help you succeed in ways that you've never succeeded before.
That is an incredible tip. What I'm hearing you say is know your worth and communicate that as succinctly as possible without over-explaining, without justifying, without feeling like people don't get it, because they do. And in other professions, we very clearly understand. I think the best analogy that I can come up with for this profession is when things are seamless, that's because there's an assistant doing it. When things aren't seamless, that's what life is like without assistance.
Absolutely. There's something that I have said quite frequently over the last couple of years. The criticism that a lot of PAs and EAs receive tends to be from the people who have never had a PA before or who have never experienced a PA before. And it definitely tends to come down to the seniority within the organisation. The CEO knows how important his or her executive assistant is. So don't be distracted by the opinion of people who are not going to add value to your career in any kind of way. You can be professional. Creating relationships is important, but don't let the noise of other people's misunderstanding of what you do impact your confidence, because you know how important you are and you don't need to explain it to anybody to receive that gratification that you're doing a good job. You know you're doing a good job. And if you're not doing a good job, or if you think that there are certain areas that you can improve on, resources like this podcast, Abby, or the assistant room are where you can really get that mentorship and that support to understand, well, how can I do this better? Is always a solution.
The time we have had today has absolutely flown by. There's so many more questions I want to ask. Let's call this part 1. There will be a part 2, because we've not even talked about how assistants can make time for themselves, for their own health and well-being. That is a whole conversation in itself. I would like to wrap up today's session by asking you what you've got coming up in 2024 and where we can connect with you online. Where can we find you?
Connection-wise, the easiest place is the website, theassistantroom.com. There you can find all of the resources that we've spoken about, the magazine, the podcast, the membership. You can find out a bit more about the membership as well, and also connect with our membership team to find out exactly how we can connect with you and benefit you specifically. We don't say that it's a one-size-fits-all membership. It's a membership that will work for you however you want, as long as you are open in your communication to us. LinkedIn is a big one for us. We have an amazing fortnightly newsletter that goes out on LinkedIn, so you can always break into what we offer on a very gentle note if you want to, but that's just the assistant room. And then what have we got coming up for the rest of the year? It's the most positive year that I think we have stepped into from the very beginning, from January the 1st since COVID. This is the year that we are seeing a lot of movement and onboarding of incredible people from around the world. So the big thing for us this year, and their conversations that are already happening, are speaking to different corporates, different sizes, everything from corporates with teams of 5 assistants all the way up to 1,200 assistants, getting them on board, teaching them the organizations how this is a commercial benefit as well as a benefit to their their PAs and EAs, the increase in retention rates, the happiness and well-being increase that we give, the access to resources that just literally do not exist anywhere else. It is so exciting. And the nice thing is that I can't give a definitive answer on what's going to come next week, because we are all about understanding and listening to what do you want as a member and then creating it. It could be anything, which makes it really fun and really enjoyable. And as I said, I love doing this. I feel very, very lucky. So yes, we've got our core bits, but who else knows? I mean, I think it's a nice bit about the job. It's the variety, really.
And last question to call this episode complete. What have you not been asked that you would like to share?
I would say realize that your mental health and your well-being and the way that you can focus on that is the exact same way that you are able to focus on that every single day for other people. You are an expert at diary management. You are an expert at managing expectations. You are an expert at thinking and putting other people's well-being first. So take a step back and redirect that energy towards yourself once a week.
Oh, I love that. Schedule your own well-being so that you can support others.
Yes.
Jessica Gardiner, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
And until next time, my friends, stay safe, stay well, and remember, it's your time. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. If you loved what you heard, be sure to let me know by leaving a review so I can keep the good stuff coming. Come and say hi on Instagram at Success by Design Training, or visit my website, successbydesigntraining.com, or connect with me on LinkedIn. Just search Abigail Barnes. Until next time, don't forget, you are amazing and it's your time.